r/AskReddit. Tattoo artist, what's the most beautiful or saddest request you've ever gotten, or one that has stood out? A young woman came in wanting a belly button tattoo. When I asked what she wanted in her belly button, she said, "I don't have a belly button, I want you to tattoo one on me." She was born with malfunctioning organs, and as a newborn the doctors had cut her open from sternum to tailbone in order to remove said organs, and then stitched her back up, leaving 2 small holes in her side for waist. She was perfectly sealed up apart from those 2 holes. After I had tattooed a dainty little grey and pink navel, she got up to have a look. Tears welled in her eyes, and then she did a little dance as she squeaked, "I've never felt closer to my mother." The shop got a little dustier that day. That was just about the best feeling I've ever had after completing a tattoo. Did you make her an innie or an outie? Lol, she preferred an innie. I have a lot of questions about which organs were taken out and how she functions without them. I have a buddy with a similar story to this. His scar is gnarly, and he tells people he got cut up in a bar fight. They took out a big part of his stomach and both intestines to make room and deal with some issues when he was born super premature. He can eat anything and stays skinny as duck, and when he farts he will clear a room. But other than that, living a pretty normal life. My oldest ever client. She was 76 and had just received a bad diagnosis, so had come in with her son to cross off, get a tattoo from her bucket list. She wanted a blue dragonfly on her collarbone, but couldn't stand upright and steady for long, so, with the help of her son, I had to lay her down on the bed to apply the stencil. Wherever possible, you should always apply a stencil with a client standing naturally, so that the design isn't distorted when gravity shifts their body. She laughed hysterically when she stood up to check the stencil placement, and it shifted from her shoulder and disappeared into her cleavage. We had a great time during the tattoo. The 3 of us laughed and joked. She had a great sense of humor and was really positive despite her grim diagnosis. 2.5 years later, she returned to the tattoo shop, now 78. Far less energetic this time, she asked me to add her son's name beneath the blue dragonfly. He had suddenly fallen sick and passed away before her. And I'm crying. Yep. That ending just cut open a dozen onions over here. My partner pro bono's tattooed nipples on women's reconstructed breasts. She is a cosmetic tattooist, and post-operative breast cancer patients are referred to her. They often cry when they see themselves after the procedure. They say it is feeling whole again after so much trauma. The artist I used to go to started doing this as well. Now, this is what she does exclusively. She didn't mean to make it the entirety of her business, but she said more and more women kept getting referred to her and often expressed the same sentiment of feeling whole and powerful again. She said she couldn't refuse the opportunity to help people heal. That is awesome. My sister is an artist. She had a client and she really did some good portraiture work on. The client was out at dinner one night when she suddenly got a headache and died on the spot from a brain aneurysm, leaving behind her young son. My sister did a charity event to raise money for her family and tattooed dozens of red balloons in her memory. I'm still really proud of her for doing that. My dad died from a brain aneurysm 6 months after retiring at age 65. This was 2 years ago. Same deal, had a funny feeling in his head. My mom took him to the hospital, and while sitting with the doctor, he put his hands to his head and then sort of shot back and was dead. Worst phone call ever, as I would have guessed he would live into his 80s and they would enjoy retirement. Now my mom lives with me. Changed everyone's lives in a second. Not me, but my artist. A guy came in his shop and asks for a St. George killing the dragon tat. My artist did the job and that was it. Like a month after, a girl came in the shop and she asked too for the same design, and my artist said something like, "Oh good, I have done the same picture like a month ago, so I'm still fresh and can do a really good job." And as soon as he finished the sentence, the girl started crying really bad. The guy was her brother that committed suicide 1 week before, and she wanted the tat for legacy. He did the job pro bono. A couple came into the shop. They were clearly distressed, but in a calm, beaten down kind of way. The man stood back, but the woman spoke with a shaky, nervous voice. She clutched some papers that clearly were important to her. Papers that had tiny footprints on them. I can tell from body language and what is being shown to me that a memorial tattoo is being asked for. When a trauma is still on the surface, I try to steer the conversation into how the memorial tattoo is to be without getting into the story of the passing, so my customer doesn't break down in the middle of the lobby. I try to keep that for when they are safely in the tattoo chair and in a private setting. This couple clearly needed privacy. They were so distraught. They had twins that passed and wanted to use the ashes in the tattoo. We did a consultation. I drew up what they wanted, then a few days later they returned for their tattoos. I ordered a new bottle of black ink, mixed the ashes carefully into the bottle with the utmost respect, then sat them down for their tattoos. They were very glad to get their tattoos, but were quiet and holding back tears. I let them talk as they needed, but I could tell they were still unable to process their losses. It was still so new. What they could choke out was one baby was born still, the other born with a rare condition, where the organs are all reversed. The second baby didn't live long. It was utterly heartbreaking. The couple couldn't say a word without tears and I could barely tattoo through the tears. I'm crying right now writing it out. I had never seen or been a part of such crippling heartache. They wanted these babies so badly. Once we finished, dried our eyes, I handed them the bottle of black ink, gave some suggestions for art projects they could do with it, and I sent them on their way, no charge. There is a saying in the tattoo world. Earn your tattoos, and it has to do with the pain. I felt this couple had already earned their tattoos. They cried all over again, thanked me and left. I thought that was that. The next day the woman came back into the shop. Duck, I'm crying again. She thanked me again and handed me a card and left. I opened it and inside was a beautiful card, a letter and 2 expensive scratch-off tickets. I won't type the letter word for word, but it read that her and her husband had 8 IVF treatments over the course of 10 years. They had all failed except the last one. This poor couple had gone through such a tremendous amount of loss, it's unfathomable. Miscarriage after miscarriage. When they found out they were pregnant with twins, that all washed away, and they had settled into their new life of parenthood, happy. They made a beautiful nursery. They bought every baby item they could find. They lived with the reality of becoming parents. She carried the babies to term. Then the day came, with one twin born still, and another born incapable of living. Devastated isn't even the word. I often think about them, and I wish 1,000 babies on them. The world seems so unfair. The death of a child isn't just a loss of life, it's the death of a dream. It's the death of all the lives around it. Motherhood and fatherhood was essentially their lives. I keep the letter over my station, so I remember what's important sometimes. Take care of each other. I tattooed a pig and rooster on a young couple's feet. He got the rooster, she got the pig. Traditionally, sailors would get these designs tattooed as a superstitious way to keep from drowning. A few months later, he contacted me to let me know that a while after they got the tattoos, they broke up. She then took her own life. He came back to me to get the pig tattooed on his other foot to match. It was a heavy day, for sure. I knew a couple like that once. They decided they'd take a break and shortly after, the girl took her life. They were both close friends of mine, and everyone who knew her took it rough. We had a memorial at my school. There was a lot of crying. Her boyfriend needed a lot of consoling. He felt super guilty. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. My girlfriend took it particularly tough. They were best friends. It doesn't surprise me that my friend feels guilty over her death. I would too if I were in his position, but nobody could have known that would happen. If anyone who reads this is in a position where you're considering suicide, you're loved. There are people who love you, whether they make that clear all the time or not. And to everyone else, make sure that the people you love know they are loved. It goes a long way. My sister-in-law got a tattoo of an owl and had my brother's ashes mixed with ink for the owl's eyes. My brother had very vibrant and striking blue eyes, and the owl has the same shade of blue eyes. They can do that? That's kind of unsettling, also hardcore. Most tattoo ink is made from animal ashes in the first place. That's why vegan tattoo ink exists. I managed a tattoo shop and we were about to close when a group of 6 well-dressed people came in. I asked if they came from a wedding. Complete opposite, they were coming from a funeral. All of them got a paper plane tattoo. Most people this was their first tattoo. They kept getting calls and 8 more people came, totaling almost 16 people getting tatted plus guests hanging out. I had to ask artists to work overtime and stay back, but they all wanted to help this family and group of friends go through this tough time. For privacy I won't mention how the person they were paying tribute passed, but the reason they got paper planes is because she looked exactly like MIA apparently, and paper planes was their inside joke with her. We let them take over the music for the shop and blast that song as loud as possible, and to see sad broken people smiling and dancing and celebrating this person's life touched me. On an unrelated note, Paper Airplanes is a pretty good song. I was an apprentice, and I sold custom drawings at the same time. I once had a woman who wanted a rainbow heart that looked like shattered glass. She then explained me that it was in memory of her daughter, who died from a car crash. The day of her death, she came out to her mom as a lesbian. Her mom didn't react well, and the daughter went for a drive to vent a little. That drive is the one who killed her. I could tell through the mails how devastated her mom was and how guilty she felt. It really broke my heart. XGF is a tattoo artist. She came home way late from work one night. 2 British dudes, drunk off their ass, came into the shop a few minutes before the shop was going to close. They wanted to get tattooed right then, right there. My ex, she wasn't really having it until they explained the situation. They were in the States, doing a cross-country road trip that they had been planning for years. There was another buddy that was going to be with them, but he passed away a few months beforehand. So they wanted to get a poorly done tattoo of his face, because all of the dead buddies' tattoos were really bad on each of their ass cheeks. So when they went to all these places that they had planned to see, they could show him. Well, the ex popped open some whiskey, threw on some metal, and started getting to it. The dudes were apparently utterly hilarious and had everyone in tears from laughter the entire time. One of the tattoos she's most proud of, but the fact that it's so poorly done on purpose, she can't really have it in her book. I love the image of these guys getting their butts out at all these famous landmarks. Your ex should work for NASA, you know, since she put a man on the moon. My best friend is a tattoo artist and a client walked in. He asked for a tattoo of his daughter's car in the same area, so his daughter won't be self-conscious about it. Throughout the appointment, he talked about his daughter and how proud he was of her. I've seen a news story about a young girl who had to have a brain tumor removed. It left a large scar on one side of her head, so her dad got a tattoo of a scar in the same place on his head. Not a tattoo artist, just heavily tattooed. One of my artist friends told me a story about a guy who came in that had lost his firstborn at 6 years old to childhood lymphoma. The guy wanted to have a full body suit done of all the kids' drawings. The drawings were terrible, but he never wanted to forget them. Duck, as a dad, that is so sad. Simple but beautiful story. Elderly man came into the tattoo shop for his first tattoo. He wanted his wife's name. While drawing it up for him, he explained his wife of 45 years had just passed away a month ago. He told me she never wanted him to have a tattoo, but he was in the service and always wanted one of her name, but he never got it because she wouldn't let him. He says, "I don't mean to be ornery or disrespect her wishes, I just need a piece of her with me until we are together again." Not an artist, but I work the front desk dealing with clients and scheduling appointments. Last year we had a woman call in requesting to get the tattoo, Daddy's property, on her stomach just above her pubic area. We quoted her a randomly high price, thinking she'd pass, but she didn't. She paid her deposit and showed up a few days later for her appointment. We get her signed in and send her off with her artist. About 20 minutes later, she comes down with tears in her eyes, thanks us for our time, and says she'll call us back to schedule another appointment. A few minutes later the artist comes down and explains the whole situation to us. Turns out she was in an abusive relationship and didn't really realize it until she started talking to the artist. She explained that she already had one tattoo she got while she was in a different abusive relationship that she was in the process of getting lasered off. He played therapist to her for 20 minutes, listening to her problems and helping her realize that she was about to make another permanent mistake she was going to regret. She did call back about a month later, scheduled a consultation for an entirely new full leg sleeve, and has been coming in every 2 months for the past year to get it worked on. He let a pocket full of cash walk out the door that afternoon, but made a client for life by not tattooing the design she came in to get. That's a good ducking artist in person. Not an artist, but I have several tattoos. The one that means the most to me is 3 X's on my ankle. When I did my driving tests, I failed a few times due to failure anxiety. One day my father decided to write me a note, telling me he believed in me, that I shouldn't let it get to my head, and that I should look at it as if it was a driving lesson, not a test. He'd be in a meeting afterwards, so I should text him my results. He closed the letter with 3 kisses, 3 X's. Now I'm highly superstitious, so I put that note in my pocket and went on to my driving test. And I passed. From that moment on, every time something important was about to happen, I'd put that note in my pocket. Unfortunately it went through the washing machine, and I lost the note, but I had a photo of it in my phone. I reckoned I was less likely to lose my ankle than a piece of paper, so I got the 3 X's tattooed in my ankle in honor of my dad. He's still alive, but it's my most valuable tattoo. Oh, thank goodness for that last line. This is such a sweet story, but with other comments I've read in here I was worried.